I'm Ava. Today I'm presenting on a subject I'm really passionate about. It's called coral bleaching. Imagine diving into a reef full of colorful coral, beautiful fish, and then you return to that same reef a year later, and it just is lifeless, barren, not the same as it was prior. That's the reality of coral bleaching. Coral bleaching is a growing environmental concern. It affects biodiversity and the marine life and millions of people's livelihoods. Today I'll be explaining what coral bleaching is, the impacts it has on marine life and human life, and some solutions we can do to avoid it. I have researched multiple scientific studies and environmental reports to provide an accurate and comprehensive understanding of this issue. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, coral bleaching occurs when the coral expels a symbiotic algae due to environmental stressors. So we have healthy coral, that's when the coral and the algae work together. When the coral gets stressed due to things I will touch on later, the algae leaves and the algae takes the color with it, which leaves the coral colorless, and that is an indicator that it is almost dead, which is not good. That means it's more vulnerable. The main environmental stressor of corals is temperature rising, and the rising in ocean temperature due to climate change. The exposure to water 2 degrees Celsius warmer than its maximum capacity. So yeah, climate change is the main stressor of corals causing the bleaching. This is an example of a coral bleaching mass incident. It happened in the Great Barrier Reef in 2016. It was due to a large heat wave. You can see the healthy coral before, and then post heat wave, it's bleached. That's due to climate change and increase in temperatures. Additional environmental stressors to coral is ocean acidification and pollution. Ocean acidification is when the CO2 in the air is increased. CO2 is caused by fossil fuels like coal and oil, those being burned. The ocean absorbs that extra CO2 in the atmosphere, and then that reduces the ability for corals to grow their skeletons, weakening them, which makes them more vulnerable to heat. When corals are weak, they are less resilient to environmental stressors like the temperature increase. Water pollution also contributes to coral bleaching and exacerbates environmental stressors. Pollutants such as plastics and heavy metals can be toxic to corals, which weakens their health. Polluted water also reduces the ability of corals to recover from temperature-induced stress. So now that we understand the causes of coral bleaching, let's discuss the effects it has on marine life and our coastal communities. So coral bleaching has severe consequences for marine biodiversity and our human population. Coral reefs support approximately 25% of marine species, and according to MIT's climate portal, when a coral dies, the entire reef collapses with it. The fish that depend on those coral structures, their habitat population also declines. So this loss of biodiversity and the loss of fish affects also our global food security. As fish populations decrease due to habitat loss, as you can see here with the post-coral bleaching and the prior coral bleaching, there's just less fish available, which also affects the fisheries that provide most of the food for local economies. According to NOAA, 1 billion people benefit from coral reef ecosystems. These fisheries that are being heavily impacted by the loss of their main food source are losing business and are losing their source of money. The collapse of coral reef ecosystems can force communities to rely on alternative, often less sustainable food sources. Coastal communities not only rely on coral reefs for support in their food supply, but also as protection from natural disasters. Coral reefs act as a natural barrier, reducing the impact of storm surges and coastal erosion. In some areas, coral reefs have protected coastal populations from hurricanes and typhoons. The loss of coral reef increases the vulnerability of coastal areas to flooding and extreme weather. So, given these devastating consequences, like what can be done to prevent coral bleaching and protect reefs? There are several ways to help mitigate coral bleaching and promote reef resilience. We can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we can create coral restoration projects, and we can also raise awareness and education. So by using solar, wind, and hydropower energy sources, we can significantly cut carbon emissions. Also, having countries establish international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord also is a huge win for the fight against climate change. Countries must commit to reducing emissions and implementing sustainable practices to protect marine ecosystems. Locally, we can establish marine protected areas like the coastline off of UCSB. This helps shield the local ecosystem from overfishing and habitat destruction. While reducing emissions is crucial, active restoration efforts can also help coral survive and adapt to changing conditions. Scientists are making artificial